stop. Your chemical of your product of your business has entered into my land, and it has damaged my plants, my garden. But I didn't add the stop.
Assalamualaikum and hi guys. So, in that situation, we can call it as strict liability. What is strict liability? Alright, so strict liability is a legal doctrine under which a person can be held liable for their actions or conduct, regardless of intent or negligence. In other words, a plaintiff doesn't have to prove that the defendant acts with fault, such as intentionally or carelessly to establish it. But instead, it is enough for the plaintiff to demonstrate that the damage or the loss occurred due to the defendant's activity or product. The principle of strict liability was established from the case of Rylance and Fletcher. From this case, Fletcher built a reservoir on his land, but unknown to him, all mine shafts beneath it were not properly sealed. When the reservoir was filled, water escaped through the shaft and flooded Rylance nearby coal mine and causing damage. The court held Fletcher liable, ruling that if someone brings something likely to cause harm onto their land and it escaped, they are responsible for the resulting damage, even if they were not negligent.
So, just now, we already heard and know about strict liability by Sister Miza. But in order to prove that there is strict liability in certain cases, it must fulfill 3 elements of strict liability. The first one is non-natural use of land, escape, and foreseeability of damage. So now, let's begin with the first element of strict liability, which is non-natural use of lands. This concept originates from the landmark case, which is Rylance and Fletcher in 1868. Non-natural use of land refers to the use of land in a way that is not common or ordinary. It involves bringing something onto the land that is likely to cause damage if it escapes. So, the occupier of the land is responsible for keeping that thing contained and is liable for any damage caused if it escapes.
Moving on to the second element, in order for the claimant to proceed with strict liability, he must prove that there is element of escape of that particular unnatural things beyond the occupation area of the defendant. In one of the case, a rat and lion, it was shown that the plaintiff could claim for strict liability because there is no such element of an escape.
Alright, so next is the foreseeability of damage. Foreseeability of damage refers to the ability to predict or anticipate that a certain action or event may cause harm or damage. In legal terms, in order for someone to be held liable for the harm, the damage must have been reasonably foreseeable at the time of the act. If the harm was something that could not have been predicted or anticipated, the person may not be held reasonable. In other words, a defendant can only be held liable for damages if it was foreseeable that their action would cause that specific harm.
Now, what can you do if you're sued under strict liability? In strict liability cases, a defendant can be held liable for an offense or harm, even if they were not negligent or did not intend to cause harm. However, there are 6 defenses that are available to a defendant in strict liability cases, which is the first one is consent of the plaintiff, default of the plaintiff, act of God, act of stranger, statutory authority, and common benefits. The defense of consent means that if someone knowingly accepts the risk, they can later complain about harm that results from it. In legal terms, it is called voluntary non-fit injuria, which means to injury it does to willing person. So now we can see this in the case of Ponting and Noax in 1984. Ponting, which is a farmer, sued the defendants, which is Noax, after his horse died from eating poisonous leaves from a yew trees on the defendant's property. So the trees branches extended over a fence that separated their properties. So the court ruled in favor of the defendant, stating that he was not liable for the horse death. So the court's reasoning that it was the horse that trespassed into the defendant's land. So the court found that the plaintiff's negligence in letting his horse wander onto the defendant's land was the primary cause of the damage.
Another 2 defenses that could be used by the defendant, which is the first about the acts of strangers, which is here referred to the intervention action by third party, which is deemed to be beyond the control of the defendants. Okay, and then the second one, we're going to talk about the common benefit, which is quite similarly to the statutory authority, which it's referred to the action taken by the defendant, even though it deems to be we didn't quite have a risk on that particular action taken by him or her, but it deems to be more beneficial towards the other party, especially the public.
There's a lot of defenses for strict liability, right guys? Now, we're going to take a look for the next defenses, which is act of God and statutory authority. Alright, so an act of God refers to a natural event or disaster that is unforeseeable or unavoidable, such as flood, earthquake, or lightning strike. If such an event causes damage, it can be used as a defense in strict liability cases. This defense works because the event is beyond human control and the defendant cannot be held responsible for harm caused by something entirely out of their control. For example, if a factory reservoir bursts due to a rare extreme storm, the factory may not be held liable because the event was an act of God that is beyond our control. So, the defense of act of God, it can be found in the case of Nicholas and Marcian. In this case, a pool on the defendant's land overflowed and damaged the claimant's land after an unusual extreme rainfall overwhelmed its safeguards. The claimant sued for negligence, but the court ruled in favor of the defendant. The flooding was deemed as an act of God, which is an unforeseeable and natural disaster beyond human control. So, the defendant was not held liable. Alright, for the next one, we have statutory authority. The question is, what is statutory authority? Statutory authority occurs when an act causing harm is authorized by law, such as when a government or public body permits certain actions. If the defendant is acting under statutory authority, they may not be held liable under strict liability for any resulting harm. For example, if a local government orders the construction of a dam and the dam causes damage due to unforeseen circumstances, the government may have a defense because the act was carried out under statutory authority. The defense of statutory authority can be related with the case of Green and Chelsea Waterworks Corporation. In this case, a water main burst while a water company was legally supplying water, flooding the plaintiff's property. The court ruled that the company was not liable because it was fulfilling its statutory duty, and the damage resulted from the action authorized by law. Statutory authority protected the defendant from liability.
So, in Malaysia, the case of strict liability always refers to case involving hazardous activities, environmental harm, and even the public safety as general. And even though it was found to be a powerful tool, for protecting the public interest, the court still and must exercise this with cautions, within the statutory frameworks, and of course apply appropriately in order to address fairness and justice. Alright, so that's all from us. Thank you for watching. Have fun learning law. Bye bye.